I just don't know what's going on. I feel like she has one foot out the door and she's just waiting for her opportunity to take that other step.
Well, there's a bed.
For what?
And we don't have a kid.
No, not today.
Wearing any panties under the skirt?
Okay, so there's an inference here that you think perhaps she has cheated on you.
Or would. I mean...
Is that what you're saying without saying it?
Yeah.
Patrick arrived at the last resort convinced that Thaís already had one foot outside their marriage. And then something happened that seemed to prove him right. During therapy, Thaís admitted that she had spent close to $2,000 in Brazil and secretly undergone liposuction without telling her husband. Her explanation was simple. She knew Patrick would say no. Now, from Patrick's point of view, this was the moment everything clicked. He had been saying Thaís was distant. He had been questioning her solo trips to Brazil. He had been worried about their lack of intimacy. He had even admitted that he believed she might be cheating. Then suddenly a real secret comes out. But here is the twist. The secret was not another man. It was a cosmetic procedure, a hidden financial decision, and proof that their communication had become so unhealthy that Thaís believed secrecy was easier than honesty. And that creates a much bigger question. Was Patrick right not to trust her? Or did Patrick's constant suspicion help create the exact secrecy he was afraid of? Because this marriage is trapped inside a very dangerous cycle. Patrick believes monitoring Thaís will stop her from leaving. Thaís believes hiding things from Patrick is the only way to protect her independence. The more he questions her, the more she withdraws. The more she withdraws, the more convinced he becomes that something is happening behind his back. And now that Patrick has reportedly filed for divorce, requested sole legal and primary physical custody of their daughter, and their off-screen conflict has involved a domestic battery allegation that prosecutors later declined to pursue, this episode feels very different. It no longer feels like the beginning of therapy. It feels like we are watching the warning signs of a marriage that was already collapsing. And the most uncomfortable part is that Patrick was right about one thing. Thaís was hiding something. But he may have been completely wrong about what that secret meant. When Patrick and Thaís first arrive at the retreat, the biggest thing you notice is not anger. It is distance. They are not screaming from the moment they enter the property. They can still joke. They can still talk normally. There are moments where you can see the couple they used to be. But underneath those moments, both of them look like they are waiting for the next problem. Patrick immediately brings up therapy and reminds Thaís that they have serious issues to solve. Thaís seems more interested in enjoying the location and having a peaceful moment. Neither reaction is completely unreasonable. When a relationship has been in crisis for a long time, one person often enters emergency mode. They want to discuss everything immediately because they are terrified that time is running out. The other person becomes emotionally exhausted. They do not want another discussion. They want 1 hour where the relationship is not being examined like a crime scene. Patrick appears to be in emergency mode. Thaís appears tired of living inside the emergency. And that difference creates another misunderstanding. Patrick sees her exhaustion as proof that she no longer cares. Thaís sees his urgency as another form of pressure. From Patrick's point of view, the marriage is slipping away and his wife does not seem worried enough. From Thaís's point of view, Patrick has turned the marriage into a test she can never pass. The hotel room interaction shows this very clearly. Patrick notices the bed and immediately takes the conversation toward sex. They are away from their daughter. They have privacy. They are finally alone. So, in Patrick's mind, this should be the perfect chance for them to reconnect. That part is understandable. A lot of couples hope that a vacation or time away from parenting will help restart the intimacy they lost at home. But Thaís does not respond with the same excitement. She makes it clear that sex is not happening that night. And instead of simply accepting the answer, Patrick begins asking what she is wearing underneath her skirt and talking about other men looking at her. That is where the energy changes. It stops feeling like harmless flirting. It starts feeling like monitoring. Patrick says men stare at her. He worries that somebody might approach her. Then he reminds her that he is watching. Maybe part of that was meant as a joke. Reality television is edited, and we are only seeing selected moments. But the emotional message is still obvious. Patrick does not experience other men noticing Thaís as a normal part of life. He experiences it as a threat. And that reveals one of the biggest contradictions in their marriage. Patrick is clearly attracted to Thaís. He seems proud of how beautiful she is. But the same beauty that attracts him also makes him afraid. He wants a confident and attractive wife, but he is anxious that confidence and beauty make it easier for her to leave. So instead of enjoying the fact that she chooses him, he focuses on the possibility that somebody else might choose her too. That is where attraction can slowly become possession. Because you cannot make your partner feel loved while also making them feel watched. And you definitely cannot rebuild desire by turning sex into proof of loyalty. Patrick explains that they have not been having enough sex. Thaís says intimacy changes after marriage, parenting, illness, stress, and normal life. Patrick does not see it that way. He says that in his previous marriage, the sex started disappearing before the divorce. So now, when Thaís rejects him or several days pass without intimacy, he does not treat it like a temporary dry period. He treats it like an alarm. This is important because Patrick is not only asking for sex. He is using sex as information. When they are intimate, he feels chosen. When she says no, he feels rejected. When the rejection continues, he feels abandoned. And once he feels abandoned, his mind goes directly toward cheating. So to Patrick, sex is not just physical connection. It is reassurance. It is proof that the marriage is still alive. It is evidence that another man has not replaced him. That explains why he reacts so strongly. But it does not make the pressure healthy. Because Thaís experiences the same situation from the opposite side. For her, Patrick's constant focus on sex does not create closeness. It creates responsibility. She says that even if she is sick, tired, or simply not in the mood, Patrick starts counting the days. After 3 days, he may already be questioning what is wrong. Imagine what that does to desire. Something that should be mutual and enjoyable begins to feel like maintenance. It becomes a task she must complete before the accusations begin. And once sex becomes the fastest way to prove you are not cheating, it stops feeling like intimacy. It becomes evidence. This is the central cycle destroying them. Patrick needs sex to feel emotionally safe. Thaís needs emotional safety before she wants sex. Patrick asks for physical reassurance. Thaís feels pressured and pulls away. Her withdrawal makes him more anxious. His anxiety creates more questioning and more accusations. That pressure makes her even less interested. Then Patrick looks at the reduced intimacy and says, "See? I knew something was wrong." Both people are reacting to something real, but their reactions are making the problem worse. Patrick's fear of divorce may actually be helping create the conditions that lead to divorce. And that is why the storyline is much deeper than a simple difference in sex drive. This is not only about one person wanting sex more often. This is about one person using sexual frequency to measure trust, while the other person experiences that measurement as control. Some fans online have used clinical labels for Patrick. Some call him a sex addict. Others use stronger language about coercion. But the episode does not give us enough information to diagnose him, and edited television footage is not a psychological evaluation. What we can do is describe the behavior. Patrick has connected sex to emotional security so strongly that Thaís saying no does not remain a simple rejection. It becomes suspicious behavior. And when saying no regularly leads to questioning, accusations, or emotional pressure, the person saying no may begin to feel that the choice is not completely free. That does not mean every intimate interaction between them is coercive. It means the environment around intimacy has become unhealthy. Patrick says he wants Thaís to desire him. But desire cannot be demanded. He wants her to initiate affection and show more interest, but he also makes intimacy feel like a responsibility. He wants proof that she is attracted to him, but the more proof he demands, the less spontaneous that attraction can be. The method he is using may be destroying the result he wants. You cannot monitor your way into romance. You cannot interrogate your way into passion. And you cannot help somebody relax by repeatedly telling them that their behavior looks suspicious. Then we get to the Brazil trips. Thaís has reportedly been traveling to Brazil more often, sometimes without Patrick. For Thaís, Brazil is not some random vacation destination. It is home. It represents her family, her language, her culture, and the version of herself that existed before she moved to America. That matters. Moving to the United States for marriage does not erase a person's emotional connection to home. It does not mean they stop missing their family, food, friends, language, and identity. But Patrick sees those trips differently. He sees distance. He sees time away from their family. He notices that she sometimes stays in an Airbnb instead of staying with relatives. And immediately, his mind begins creating possibilities. Someone could visit her. Someone could stay there. Someone could approach her. Technically, yes, someone could visit an Airbnb. Someone could also visit a hotel, a restaurant, a gym, a grocery store, or almost any place where people exist. Possibility is not evidence. Patrick seems to struggle with that difference. He treats opportunity like proof of intention. Thaís stays somewhere private, so maybe she wants privacy for another man. She goes to the gym, so maybe she is trying to impress somebody. She wears something revealing, so maybe she wants attention. She does not want sex, so maybe she is getting it somewhere else. She changes her body, so maybe she is preparing for another relationship. Once suspicion becomes the starting point, almost any behavior can look guilty, and no amount of reassurance can fix that. Thaís cannot prove that nobody talked to her at the gym. She cannot prove that nobody visited her Airbnb unless Patrick has access to every part of her life. And even if she gave him her location, messages, finances, and daily schedule, a deeply insecure mind could still ask what happened during the moments he could not see. This is why surveillance does not cure insecurity. It feeds it. Every new piece of information creates another possible gap. But before we completely defend Thaís, we have to address the real secret she kept. Patrick notices a credit card charge close to $2,000. Thaís refuses to clearly explain what the money was for. Then, during therapy, she finally admits that she underwent liposuction on her back while she was in Brazil. This is where the audience divides. Patrick's cheating accusation was not proven, but his belief that Thaís was hiding something was correct. She hid a major expense. She hid a medical procedure. And she made that decision knowing her husband would object. Now, bodily autonomy matters. Thaís does not need Patrick's permission to make decisions about her own body. Marriage does not make one spouse the owner of the other person's medical choices. If she wanted a cosmetic procedure, the final decision was hers. But bodily autonomy and financial transparency are two separate issues. If she used shared money, joint credit, or borrowed funds that affect the household, Patrick had a legitimate reason to know. $2,000 is not the same as buying lunch without mentioning it. And this couple is already dealing with financial pressure. TLC's own background mentions a failed business, financial setbacks, and conflict over spending. So the timing matters. If a couple is financially comfortable and both people have independent spending money, the situation may look different. But if the household is struggling, a secret expense of that size becomes a marital issue. The fact that it involved surgery adds another layer. Liposuction may be common, but no surgery is completely risk-free. There can be complications, infections, reactions to anesthesia, or recovery problems. A spouse may reasonably expect to know if their partner is undergoing a medical procedure in another country. So Patrick is not wrong to feel betrayed by the secrecy. He is not wrong to ask where the money went. And he is not wrong to be shocked that his wife went through surgery without telling him. Where Patrick goes wrong is using one confirmed secret as proof of every unconfirmed suspicion. Thaís hid surgery. That does not prove she cheated. She hid spending. That does not prove somebody visited her Airbnb. She avoided telling him because she expected an argument. That does not prove she was emotionally involved with someone else. One real secret can quickly become retroactive proof for 10 imaginary betrayals. Patrick can now look back and say, I knew something was wrong. And technically, something was wrong, but it was not necessarily what he believed. Thaís's explanation is also very revealing. She says she did not tell Patrick because she knew he would say no. She does not say she forgot. She does not say it was spontaneous. She says she expected him to reject the decision. That suggests she believes Patrick's opinion functions like permission. She expected him to act as though he had the authority to approve what she did with her body. But instead of confronting that issue directly, she avoided it. And that seems to be Thaís's pattern. When she expects disapproval, she delays the conversation. She avoids the immediate argument by hiding the information. The short-term result is freedom. The long-term result is a much bigger explosion. We saw a similar pattern during their original season. Thaís delayed telling her father the full truth about moving to America to marry Patrick because she expected him to disapprove. Different persons, same strategy. Anticipate conflict. Hide the information. Make the decision privately. Reveal the truth only when it becomes impossible to avoid. Thaís may see that as self-protection. Patrick sees it as deception. Both interpretations can be true. A behavior can begin as protection and still destroy trust. Her fear explains the secret. It does not erase the consequences. And this is where viewers often make the conversation too simple. People want one villain. Either Patrick is controlling, so Thaís did nothing wrong. Or Thaís is dishonest, so Patrick's jealousy is justified. But relationships do not work like that. Patrick can behave in a controlling way and still deserve financial honesty. Thaís can have bodily autonomy and still owe her husband transparency about shared debt. Patrick's suspicion can be excessive while Thaís's secrecy makes trust harder. Thaís can be wrong for hiding surgery while still being right that Patrick makes honesty feel dangerous. Both people can have valid feelings and unhealthy behavior at the same time. The strongest analysis is not Team Patrick or Team Thaís. It is understanding the cycle they created. Patrick tries to prevent betrayal by gathering information. Thaís tries to prevent conflict by restricting information. Patrick monitors because he fears secrets. Thaís hides things because she fears monitoring. Then each person uses the other person's reaction as proof that their own behavior was necessary. Patrick says, I have to check because she hides things. Thaís says, I have to hide things because he checks everything. That is the closed loop destroying the marriage. Patrick gets the truth, but only after interrogation. Thaís gets independence, but only through concealment. Neither person gets trust. The financial dynamic also deserves attention. Patrick tracking the credit card could mean responsible financial awareness. If the household is under pressure, noticing a $2,000 charge is not automatically controlling. But it could also mean Patrick manages the finances so closely that Thaís feels she has no economic independence. We do not know enough about their accounts to settle that debate. Do they share everything? Does Thaís have personal income? Did they agree on a spending limit? Does Patrick also discuss his major purchases? Those details matter. Without them, viewers are filling the gaps with assumptions. Some fans see Patrick as a responsible husband discovering a secret charge. Others see him as someone using money to control his wife. The truth may contain both elements. Sometimes one partner becomes the financial manager because the other person avoids the subject. Then management slowly becomes authority. One person knows the accounts, debts, and bills. The other person feels judged whenever they spend. The manager becomes stricter because they believe the household will collapse without them. The other partner becomes more secretive because every purchase creates conflict. Again, the same cycle. The couple had also dealt with health problems, a move, business trouble, family tragedy, and becoming parents. That is a massive amount of stress. Intimacy often changes after childbirth, illness, financial problems, relocation, and unresolved resentment. But Patrick appears to isolate the lack of sex and treat it as evidence that Thaís no longer wants him. He focuses on the symptom. Thaís focuses on the pressure surrounding it. That is why they keep arguing about the wrong issue. Patrick says, we are not having enough sex. Thaís says, you pressure me. Patrick says, you are distant. Thaís says, you do not trust me. Patrick says, you hide things. Thaís says, you make it impossible to be honest. Every statement is connected. But instead of discussing how to stop the cycle, they debate who started it. Then Patrick says Thaís has become selfish and that the family is no longer her priority. He did not directly use the phrase bad mom in the footage being discussed. But the implication is still serious. When you tell a parent that the family is no longer their priority, you are questioning more than one decision. You are questioning their identity. Thaís becomes defensive because she believes Patrick does not appreciate what she contributes. From her perspective, he sees the gym, travel, self-care, and surgery, then labels all of it selfish. From Patrick's perspective, Thaís appears increasingly focused on herself, while the marriage is falling apart. Once an argument changes from "you hurt me" to "you are failing our child," the conflict becomes much more dangerous. They are no longer discussing a problem. They are building cases about character. And later, when Patrick reportedly files for divorce and requests sole legal and primary physical custody of their daughter, that earlier accusation becomes more significant. But we have to be accurate. A custody request is not a custody ruling. Patrick requesting sole custody does not prove that Thaís is an unfit mother.